Hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman, and it is time for some more watch news. So let us begin. The first little bit of news I have is what Maven has been up to. I personally actually own a Maven watch, and it's pretty great. It's a small watch that was inspired by military designs. However, to me it looks a little bit Bauhausy. So let's look at one of the lineups that Maven is offering now. These are automatic watches, unlike the one that I own. So we're looking at the MUS Plus lineup. Mus Plus? Nice. The first piece in this lineup is the Khaki. So this is a watch with a cream colored dial, a nice brushed case, and a khaki elastic paratrooper strap. These watches are currently in stock, and just like the other pieces in this lineup, they feature a circular date window at the 3 o'clock. There's a great touch of orange at the 12 o'clock indicator, and the counterweight of the seconds hand. And I feel like one thing that Maven does really well are their hands. On the watch that I own, they're kind of brushed, and they almost have the appearance of being painted white because they're so light, but they are not. They're very similar to the texture of the case. That is so cool. And in looking at the pictures of these watches, it appears that their hands are kind of similar. The next watch in the lineup is the sand-colored watch, the MUS Plus 01 Sand Piatto. These watches are currently in stock. They have the same cream-colored dial, same layout as the Khaki. The main difference is simply in the strap. The straps on these watches do not have a line down the center of them like the Khaki ones do, and they're more of a sand color than a khaki color. Very similar though. The next watch in the lineup is the Orange Piatto. And again, it's basically the same watch on a different strap. This one is a bright orange paratrooper strap. It has a white line down the center of it, and it looks brilliant on this watch, especially with those pops of orange at the 12 o'clock and again at the counterweight of the seconds hand. The dial design on these watches is so great. I mean, they're just like the dial on the watch that I own, as you can see here. Next up in the lineup is the MUS Plus 02 Navy Piatto. Sadly, these watches are currently sold out. Everyone is loving the blue dial, and it does look brilliant. They've kept the touches of orange on the dial, which really complement the blue. These ship on a blue paratrooper strap with a white line down the middle of them. This colorway just looks brilliant. No wonder why it's sold out. Next is the MUS Plus 03 Black Piatto. These watches don't have the touch of orange, but the black dial looks so great. Especially with the box crystals. I mean, look at that. I feel like with the black colorway, it kind of shows that off a bit more than the others. These are currently in stock and they ship on a black paratrooper strap. They also have an MUS Plus 06 Olive Piatto. Again, they have the same dial layout, but it's in an olive colorway. And they ship on an olive paratrooper strap. Each of these watches has a 38mm case, a case height of 14mm, and they look like they are a little bit chubby. But who knows, I'd have to see one in person. They have sapphire crystals. Inside these watches is a Miyota 8215. They have 200 meters of water resistance, and they retail for about $294. If you haven't checked out Maven watches, you might want to. They have a great design language, and the watch that I own is really solid. Next up, we have a watch from a brand called Bayod. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's spelled BA1110D, and it's a play on the owner's last name, which I think is pronounced Bayod. Bayo? Watches TV on YouTube actually did a brilliant video interviewing the owner of the brand. They were discussing the brand's accessible tourbillon watch. Be sure to check that video out. I left a link to it in the description below. The watch we're looking at tonight is a very Genta-esque piece. It has an octagonal shaped bezel on it, a nice textured dial, and interestingly, the crown is at the 4 o'clock on these. And it's crazy, this brand is only 4 years old. And it seems that this piece is sort of the brand returning from adventures in skeletonized and very complex looking watches. The minutes track on the inside of the applied indices is interesting because it kind of vanishes into the texture of the dial. Very interesting. I like the hands and the markers on these pieces, and the case itself just looks brilliant. So each release that this brand does is kicked off on LinkedIn, as well as private parties. And it's crazy how affordable their watches are, especially their tourbillon. If I remember correctly, it was actually under $1,000 for a watch with a tourbillon in it. These watches are available in a number of colorways. My personal favorite is the silver dial one. That just looks brilliant. The case size on these watches is 42 millimeters. The case height is 11 millimeters. The movement inside them is a Soprod P024. They have 50 meters of water resistance, and they retail for $665. I would expect that watches similar to these would retail up in the 800s, maybe around 1,000. So that really isn't too terrible. Okay, this next little bit of news was kind of a shock. When I was originally doing research for this video, I found an article on a brilliant looking Atmos watch, and those notes kind of sat in my folder for a little bit, and I decided to include it in this video. However, when I followed the link to the brand's website, the site was down. So I did some searching online and found that their Kickstarter campaign had been canceled. So it seems that this Microbrand is dead, which is so sad because look at how brilliant their watch design is. I love how small that bezel is and just the general design of that dial. So cool. So Atmos was an Australian brand. At the time that they canceled their Kickstarter, it had raised $36,000. And tons of high-profile sites had featured the watch. But it seems that they ran into supply-side trouble or something along those lines. In fact, they left a note on their Kickstarter that reads, "Hi all, this announcement is something that we really wanted to avoid and have tried our best to find a way around due to circumstances outside of our control and certain logistical challenges that have arisen at this early stage of the business. We've made the decision to put the launch of the SR01 on hold for the time being. Our options were continue with the launch and risk under-delivering a product/service to our supporters that have outlaid their hard-earned money. This is something we couldn't accept. Or put a hold on the project and relaunch once we've overcome these challenges. We understand that this is disappointing news to everyone that has been looking forward to getting their hands on the SR01 and for what has been a very successful campaign. Given the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in, out of respect to our backers and supporters, we've decided that it is the best course of action for the moment." What does this mean? Basically, the Kickstarter campaign will be canceled on the platform and no one's card will be charged at its conclusion. A massive thank you to everyone who has jumped on board and has supported us over the past few months and weeks in the launch. We really appreciate the interest in our small startup brand and could not have got things this far without you. Stay tuned to our socials at atmos.watches, and we'll be providing updates over there as we progress. We will most certainly be back. And hopefully they will. I think these watches look great. What a great start to a company. Just too bad they ran into whatever difficulties they encountered that was preventing them from potentially delivering their watches. The case size on these watches is 41 millimeters. The crystal is sapphire. The movement inside these watches is a Miyota 9039. They have a water resistance of 100 meters, and the early bird special was going for $334. Next up, we have an article on Time and Tide about a Baltic lineup, the Baltic Hermetique Touré. And first off, I love Baltic. I owned the Baltic Aquascaf for a while, and that was an absolutely brilliant watch. The only reason I got rid of it was because I was just a little bit obsessed with the Serica 5303. And the watches in this lineup are absolutely brilliant. I love the thinness of their cases. The nearly proper vintage size to them. They're 37 millimeters. Sweet. And the crystal. So great. These watches are available in a number of colorways, and all the colors look so good. You can get these in green, blue, beige, and brown. I love pretty much everything about the dials on these watches. The hands are brilliant. I love the indices and how the minutes track around the edge of the dial is black in contrast to the color of the rest of the dial. So the beige is almost a tuxedo style watch. The sort of vintage Explorer hour markers at 12, 3, 6, and 9, yes. And again, look at those crystals. They're kind of spendy at $1,000, but if I had $1,000 to spend, these would be tempting. Like I mentioned, they have a case size of 37 millimeters, a case height of only 10.8 millimeters, and I'm pretty sure that includes the crystal. They have a lug width of 20 millimeters, and just like the previous watch, these have a Miyota 9039 in them, and they retail for about $1,000. The last article that I have is about a watch that was Andy Warhol's favorite. I do love me some Warhol. This is an article from USA Watch Pro, and I also pulled some pictures from an article by A Blog to Watch about Andy Warhol and his watches. The watch that I'm discussing tonight is the Piaget Black Tie Vintage. And actually the brand did a reissue of this watch, and when I was looking around online to find pictures of vintage ones, yeah, pretty much all I could find was the reissue. This lineup also had tank style watches, and I was unable to find pictures of Andy Warhol's black tie vintage watch, so I'm not sure exactly what his looked like. But the reissue is pretty crazy looking. I love the silver variants of these, and look at how minimal that dial is. That's some Movado level minimalism there. They were reissued in 2014, and they're also available in yellow gold. But the crazy thing about the reissue is the size of the cases. These watches are 45 millimeters by 40 millimeters. Why? Why in the world? They're minimalist, dressy watches, and they're just gigantic. And on top of that, they're kind of a rounded square shape, so I feel like they're gonna wear even larger. When I found out just how big they were, I almost included these watches in one of my ugly watch videos. And I might still, because that is just crazy. I really love the stepped case. That is just so cool looking. And the uniqueness in the shape of the case. I feel like the hidden lugs definitely fit the aesthetic of these watches better than standard lugs, so I don't have a problem with those. Yeah, it'd be cool if they had made the reissue in a couple different case sizes. Even if you call the smaller one a ladies' watch, that's fine. Not like I would ever be buying one. These retail for $32,000. So there you have it. You are now caught up on the news. Thanks for watching.